He has. There's something that Taurus almost always carries in silence, a feeling that appears late at night, in the middle of a good week, when everything is in its place, and yet something weighs on them. A kind of absence that has no name, that they don't mention because mentioning it would be admitting that something is missing. And Taurus doesn't like missing things. Taurus solves things that are missing. They go to the market, stock the pantry, organize the closet, schedule the next step. But this one they leave alone, because they don't quite know where to buy what's missing. They don't quite know what it is. And so they act as they do with everything that doesn't have an immediate solution. They put it on hold. They move on. They close another drawer. And Taurus's house is always tidy. Not because they're compulsive, it's because they're meticulous. Every object in its right place, every drawer closed, every room with its function. And there's something beautiful about that. There's something profoundly true in the way Taurus creates the world around them, as if organizing the external space were a way of honoring the chaos that sometimes exists inside. As if the beauty they cultivate outside were a silent promise that they still believe it's worth taking care of. But there is one room that Taurus doesn't enter. A room that is locked not by forgetfulness, but by decision. A decision he made at some point in his life, after something happened, and which has since become a rule without the form of written law. A rule that says, "Not here. Stay quiet here. I won't touch this place. Can you tell which room I'm talking about?" Because that's exactly where this story begins. Because Taurus is deep in a way that's frightening. He doesn't shout it. He doesn't expose it. But when he feels something, he feels it with his whole body. With that quality of someone who was made to take root, and who therefore needs to be very careful about what he lets in through the roots. Because what goes in through the roots stays there forever. And the result is a system, a filter, sophisticated, invisible, efficient. Taurus decides who enters his life, how much enters, how quickly and to what extent. He doesn't do this maliciously. He does it with the same precision he uses for anything else important. Because for Taurus, the heart is the most important thing, and important things are protected, surrounded, guarded with the same care he would guard any other precious possession. The problem is that the safe also holds what belongs to Taurus. What hasn't yet been experienced, what was kept so carefully that it was almost forgotten, and the combination, the one only he knows, sometimes he himself forgets how to use. Because so much time has passed without needing to open it, that the very idea of opening it has become strange. It has become a risk. It has become something he prefers to leave for later, and later never comes. So what does Taurus do with something he didn't call for, didn't plan for, and doesn't know how to fit into the system he spent years building? It was while searching for answers to this that I found this digital book, The Divine Path That Guides Your Zodiac Sign to a Life of Purpose. It's not a book about relationships. It's a book about what happens when Taurus begins to realize that the external stability they've built no longer answers the questions that arise from within. It's about learning to inhabit one's own depth, not with fear of it, not fleeing into routine, but with the real solidity that no safe can provide, because that solidity comes from within, not from without. It's about finding the path that only Taurus can walk. The one that doesn't pass through the security of the known, but through the courage of the true. And I know you're here now, still processing what you've just recognized in yourself. That discomfort is active, that feeling that something has changed and you don't know what to do with it. Don't wait for this moment to pass. When the room is open, it's time to go in, not to lock it again. The link is in the first pinned comment. But be aware, this content may be taken down. Click now and download your copy. And before we continue, tell me in the comments, have you ever felt a presence enter your life uninvited and change something you didn't even know needed changing? Write it below. It doesn't have to be a long story. One word says a lot. But life has a particular way of testing the systems we build. Not with warnings, not with preparation, with ordinary moments, with boring Tuesdays, with unplanned conversations, with presences that appear uninvited and that pass through the filter without Taurus understanding how. Every suit of armor has a crack. It's not a construction flaw, it's a law of nature. There is no structure without an entry point, and Taurus's crack is beauty, not magazine beauty, not calculated beauty, beauty of presence, that intangible quality that some people carry and that Taurus feels before processing, before analyzing, before deciding whether to let it in. It's a frequency, a vibration, something he recognizes before understanding, and that passes through the filter precisely because it arrives before the decision. It's like a light being turned on in a room that's been dark for far too long. Your eyes ache, you blink, you instinctively want to close them because the brightness hurts after so much gloom. But you can't, because the light is real and you are hungry for reality without knowing it. You were so used to the darkness that you called it comfort. But the light appears, and you remember what it was like when the room was inhabited. Taurus finds this light in places where he wasn't looking, in a work environment, in a casual meeting, in a circumstance so common that later he will wonder how something so great could have started from something so small. And at the exact moment she appears, this woman, this specific presence, something inside Taurus stops. It keeps working. Stop pretending that everything is fine as it is. It's not a dramatic impact. Taurus doesn't collapse. He doesn't show anything. On the outside, he remains the same. The conversation continues. The day continues. He remains the Taurus everyone knows. Present, caring, stable. But inside, something happens that he can't control. A pause, as if the internal mechanism has encountered something that the system doesn't know how to categorize. And when the system doesn't know how to categorize, it freezes for a moment before trying to process it. And it is during this pause that everything changes, because Taurus is used to knowing what it feels, to naming, to categorizing, to deciding what to do with each thing. But this it can't quite name. It's an earthquake that doesn't feel like a catastrophe. It feels like the ground is real for the first time, and that distinction is everything. Because Taurus spent years building stability, and suddenly he realizes that what he had was firmness, not presence, structure, not life. And this woman, simply by existing in the same space as him, revealed this difference without saying a word, without doing anything other than being who she is. So what does Taurus do with something he didn't call for, didn't plan for, and doesn't know how to fit into the system he spent years building? It was while searching for answers to this that I found this digital book, The Divine Path That Guides Your Zodiac Sign to a Life of Purpose. It's not a book about relationships. It's a book about what happens when Taurus begins to realize that the external stability they've built no longer answers the questions that arise from within. It's about learning to inhabit one's own depth, not with fear of it, not fleeing into routine, but with the real solidity that no safe can provide, because that solidity comes from within, not from without. It's about finding the path that only Taurus can walk, the one that doesn't pass through the security of the known, but through the courage of the true. And I know you're here now, still processing what you've just recognized in yourself. That discomfort is active, that feeling that something has changed and you still don't know what to do about it. Don't wait for this moment to pass, to act, because it's precisely when we're in this space of recognition that the right words make a real difference. When the room is open, it's time to go in, not to lock it again. The link is in the first pinned comment. But be aware, this content may be taken down. Click now and download your copy. And before we continue, tell me in the comments, Have you ever felt a presence enter your life uninvited and change something you didn't even know needed changing? Write it below. It doesn't have to be a long story. One word says a lot. What happens after that presence passes through the filter is that Taurus starts noticing things, little things, the way she pronounced a word, the way she moved at a certain moment, a detail that no one else would have registered, but Taurus registered. Because Taurus registers everything that matters, even when pretending it doesn't matter. Taurus's emotional memory is encyclopedic. He remembers, he keeps, sometimes for years. She appears in thoughts at odd hours, in the middle of a report, in the supermarket queue, in a moment of silence that was once tranquil and now has a different weight. A silence that was once comfortably empty and is now empty with her inside. And Taurus tries, with all the competence it has to manage the inner world, to reorganize it, to put it in its rightful place, to decide what it means, to name it in order to control it. But it can't, because this woman isn't occupying a place within the Taurus system. She's questioning the entire system. There's a song you heard once, just once, and it stayed with you. Weeks later, you're washing the dishes, and it reappears. You didn't call for it. You didn't seek it out. It's just there, occupying space as if it had the right to. You try to remember the name, the lyrics, where it's from, but before anything else, you're already feeling what it does to you. And you realize that it doesn't matter where it came from. What matters is that it stayed. What Taurus feels for it has this quality. It's not obsession, it's not passing confusion, it's a recognition that doesn't fit into any box of the system they've built. And Taurus begins to wonder silently, because Taurus almost always wonders silently, is this desire? Is that the right word? Or is it something more unsettling than desire, a longing for something he hasn't yet experienced, but which this presence has reminded him exists? A longing for a future he closed off before exploring. For a version of himself he left waiting in the locked room. If you feel that this recognition is greater than you expected, that there are more layers to you than routine allows to appear, the book, The Divine Path that guides your zodiac sign to a life of purpose, will take you as far as that conversation opens the door. It was written for the moment when you realize that what you feel no longer fits into the explanations you had. Taurus knows how to build. But sometimes it needs someone to show it what to build when what was there is no longer enough. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey towards the clarity and genius you deserve. What's most disturbing isn't what she awakens in Taurus. What's most disturbing is what she reveals. Because when Taurus starts paying attention, really paying attention, with the depth he reserves for few things, he realizes that what he sees in her isn't exactly her. It's a reflection. It's the part of himself he's kept hidden, the capacity for lightness he traded for responsibility, the desire to be surprised he gave up in the name of predictability, the openness he closed when he learned that openness is vulnerability, the guilt-free pleasure he began to rationalize as excess, the spontaneity he called irresponsibility and eliminated from the menu. She is a mirror, and mirrors don't lie. There are mirrors you pass by every day without really looking. You see enough to know they're there, but you don't truly look. And then someone, in passing unintentionally, cleans the mirror covered in years of grime, and you see yourself, clearly, with the face you forgot you had, with the eyes you gradually closed and called maturity, and this clarity hurts a little. But it's an honest pain, the kind of pain that Taurus deep down respects. What Taurus sees reflected in this woman are the pieces of himself that were left behind when he decided to be solid, when he chose to hold on to everything so as not to lose anything. Taurus looks at her and sees, perhaps for the first time with such clarity, the cost of what he built. what the safe protected, but also imprisoned, what routine sustained, but also stifled, what the right distance maintained peace, but also kept away the life that was waiting on the other side of that distance. And this question, the one he can't silence: what if what I feel for her is actually what I miss in myself? There's something in this revelation that the book, The Divine Path that Guides Your Zodiac Sign to a Life of Purpose, touches upon with a precision that few other works achieve. Not because it explains Taurus from the outside, but because it goes to the place where Taurus keeps what it doesn't show, the questions it asks itself when it's alone and honest, without an audience, without a role to fulfill. If you've made it this far and feel that the mirror this narrative has held up has shown you something you didn't expect to see, now is the time to seize the opportunity. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey towards the clarity and genius you deserve. And then comes the most difficult moment of all, the moment that Taurus has postponed for so long, in smaller versions, in similar situations, always finding a very good, very logical, very responsible reason to postpone it once again. The choice, not the choice about her, the choice about himself. Because Taurus can do what it has always done: acknowledge what it feels, file it away, return to its routine, wait for it to pass. It knows how to do this. It's almost a talent. The ability to put an emotion into indefinite suspension without it surfacing, to function normally while something immense is quiet inside, to be the same to everyone while inside something is forever different. Taurus is a master at this. It calls it patience. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's giving up by another name. But this time, it's different. He knows it's different, because what she revealed, the reflection, the room, the absence with a name, cannot be filed away. Not in the same way, because now he knows it's there. And knowing changes everything. You can't describe what you saw. You can't undo what you felt with your whole body. You can't close a door that you now know exists, that was there, that was yours all along. A seed that stays underground for too long becomes nothing more than a seed. It may be protected, intact, exactly as it was when it was stored. But it hasn't become what it could have become. And the earth doesn't hold seeds forever. At some point, something happens. A rain, a ray of light. And the seed either breaks through the soil and becomes a root, becomes fruit, or rots in the safety of the place where it remained. Taurus is at this point, with this woman as a catalyst, not as destiny. She is not the answer, she is the question. And the question is, how much of myself am I still willing to hold back in the name of the security I have created for myself? How much of real life do I trade for artificial stability? How much of myself do I leave on hold while I so masterfully organize the world around me? This choice, this specific one, doesn't have a single right answer that anyone else can give, but there is a clarity that can be cultivated, a way to understand what Taurus carries, what it fears, what it protects, and why. The book, The Divine Path that Guides Your Zodiac Sign to a Life of Purpose, is that space where Taurus can look at itself with the same patience it offers to everything it loves, but rarely offers to itself. A patience that is not passive waiting. It is real presence. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey towards the clarity and genius you deserve. What happens after that, whether it's part of the story or not, is that Taurus doesn't go back to the way it was before. That's what few people understand about it. It seems immobile, resistant to change. But when something genuine touches its core, when something real passes through the filter and reaches where it keeps what matters most, the change that happens is permanent, silent, invisible to those looking from the outside. but permanent like the water that reshaped the canyon without anyone seeing it happen. The lock that has been opened no longer pretends not to know how to open it. And this woman, regardless of what becomes of their relationship, whether it turns into a love story, a passing story, a learning experience, or simply the story of an encounter that showed that life still has surprises that the Taurus system didn't foresee, has already done what she came to do. She opened the room that Taurus kept closed. She cleaned the mirror. She made the seed remember that it has soil to break through and a sun to reach. And Taurus, who has always known how to build the external world with such mastery, begins to understand that there is a greater construction waiting for him. One that doesn't need bricks or a safe. One that needs, on the contrary, openness, permission. That specific courage that is not the courage to endure, it's the courage to let in, to inhabit, to truly exist in his own space, without drawers, without the locked room, without the right distance that has become too much distance. Life didn't send this woman to destabilize Taurus. It sent her to reveal him, to show him what still exists within him, sleeping in the safety of a well-constructed system. And revelation isn't destruction. It's an invitation. The most honest invitation existence knows how to offer. An invitation that doesn't shout, that doesn't insist. That simply appears on any given Tuesday in an ordinary place, in a specific presence, and stays there silent, waiting for Taurus to decide whether to open the door. Taurus always knew it was made of solid ground. But solid ground isn't rigid ground. It's ground that sustains and also generates, that also flourishes. Ground that doesn't receive rain turns to stone. Ground that opens up, that absorbs, that allows. That ground becomes a garden. When this woman appears, and she will appear at a moment you won't foresee, don't try to understand before you feel. Don't try to file her away before you inhabit her. Let the ground tremble a little. Because it is precisely in this tremor that Taurus discovers that it can be everything it has always been, and still be more, be new, be whole, be what was waiting for itself in the room that remained closed for too long. And this whole being is what had been waiting for him all along, not outside, not in another person, inside, on the same solid ground he built, but with the room finally open, finally inhabited, finally alive.